Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. This weekend's been sunny, which is nice. Yeah.
Nice. It's still kind of chilly over here, which is
Really?
sad, but yeah. But I mean, I'm wearing like a shirt that doesn't have sleeves on it, so it's gotten better.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable wearing something without like long sleeves, so
Right.
it's warm enough just to wear something with short sleeves
Okay.
on. I'm Shivani.
Hi, I'm Miranda, and this is episode 60,
30,
30,
36.
36.
60? My goodness.
36.
Oh,
Sorry, guys. In my mind, I was gonna say 63. Anyway,
cute.
yes.
Would you like to introduce the topic
Sure
today?
I can. So I had this cool idea, I guess. Because when I woke up this morning, as one does, I scrolled through social media. And I got a notification from LinkedIn, which I know isn't a typical social media platform. Don't judge me, guys. About this kid who I don't know super well, but he posted about how when he was in North Carolina, he was basically like attacked by a group um of white individuals who they like said something like, "Are you gonna use your kung fu skills on us?" Um,
Ooh.
yeah, he ended up in the hospital, and then he tried to file a report with the police, but then the police basically did like a their word against yours. Um, and then he saw these people like a few days later, like at a bar or something, and they also were being racist. Still, he is an Asian American, and obviously this is like a pretty big deal right now. There is a lot of Asian American racism right now, especially Chinese Americans. Some people are blaming COVID on Chinese Americans, even though they obviously weren't in China when it started, and even then, like it's not really China's fault. I don't know enough about COVID to say exactly what started it, but like the racism, yikes. And so, um, I scrolled through the comments as one does, and the first comment was this woman talking about. She basically said like, "No offense to you and others who have been injured in this way, but this just highlights how much um people need to listen to black individuals because this is only a small fraction of what black individuals have to endure every day." Which, valid. Very valid. Black individuals do have to endure a lot. And there's a lot of racism and a lot of hate and a lot of violence. But I left a comment about like that is a valid concern, and like I basically just said. And then I was like, but you shouldn't erase the voices of the Asian Americans and invalidate what they're saying. If we choose to compete, we're not going to get anywhere. And instead, we should be working together to call out the racism or sexism or other marginalizing systems that are in place. So yeah, I wanted to talk about.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know the Asian American like personally?
Not well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's insane. I mean, we did we I like I remember saying something about we were talking about in a previous episode about like um the racism that black individuals experience versus I think you brought it up and then you're just like don't like Asians experience that too, and I might have said something like yes they do but it's like not as severe, and I don't think I was thinking about it. We recorded this a while ago before like the violence like hit the news and we were
Yeah.
like exposed to like all of the crazy stuff that's happening, which is
Right.
not okay. And I think this just like is bringing up like what's been kind of like underlying under like underlying like racism that like hasn't been brought to the surface, and it's like
Yeah.
a physical manifestation of like how there are other groups, people of color who are experiencing this too. And I totally agree with you about like how we shouldn't be invalidating other people's experiences with racism. I mean, obviously, like black individuals, they have it really rough, really hard, and there's a very bloody past, and it's very ingrained into our society. It, just thinking about how people can compare like compare their trauma, their racism, their experience like with violence to other people's and try to diminish what they've experienced, it just irks me. Like, you should be uniting, you should be, banding together and supporting each other. It's just I understand where it's coming from, but at the same time, like, there are people hurting and you want to make your problems more, I don't know. Like,
Right.
do you know, do you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying? I don't know.
yeah, completely. Like, oh, um, I feel like this is the first time in a while, at least in big media, that Asian American racism has like been really talked about since like the Transcontinental Railroad or like internment camps.
Mm,
Um, so I think it's so important, and I think if it's invalidated too quickly, the issue, like people are going to pretend the issue doesn't exist, and then the Asian Americans won't be able to get the proper like treatment, not treatment like mental health treatment, but how they should be treated by individuals in
yeah.
society and the proper attention for the issue. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and I think I don't. This is just like based on like what I've observed. And have you heard of Hassan Minaj? He has his like own show and he like talks about like political things and social issues. Really cool dude. He's on Netflix and he has like a lot of cool stuff. But he's talking about like just his experiences with like his family like dealing with like racism,
Okay.
and it's just like I think in general, Asian Americans have like dealt with racism differently, or like they were very passive
Oh.
about how they responded to racism. And I've noticed that like just with like within my own community, like whenever someone like says something racist or does something racist, like toward me as in like a Southeast Asian person, um, we're very passive about it and we kind of just like let it go. We're not super vocal about it.
Mhm.
Like we don't make so much noise about it when it happens, and so I think that's like we subconsciously like just kind of like let it keep going, let it go on. And I think because it's turned into like actual like violence and that like we're seeing it now, and there has been violence in the past but it hasn't been like recorded or anything, um it we're more willing to do something about it. So like I don't it's just like it's really weird how people are comparing different types of racism when it's all like the same. Like it shouldn't matter like what type of racism it
Right.
is. Like it's racism.
Yeah.
That's wrong. That shouldn't be, you shouldn't have to like justify like
Mhm.
different types of it. Like if it's racist, then it's racist and you shouldn't be doing that. Like get it right. Like
Mhm.
uh
All
uh
marginalized groups deserve a voice and
oh
shouldn't
for
be
sure.
validated by other marginalized groups. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and like there's like things going. I don't know. Have you heard about like the argument about like a person of color? Like I don't. I've been watch. I just watch like a lot of like YouTube videos from like different like perspectives of like Black individuals or people of color, and sometimes there's like an argument like going on about like if you're a person of color, you can't be racist to like other people of color. So like if I'm like say like since I'm like Indian, I can't be racist towards like other Indians or like
racism is
if you're a say it again, sorry.
because racism is only from the people in power, or like
See,
this.
like I don't necessarily think it's only about that. I think I have definitely seen like people of color being racist toward other people of color, and I totally think that's a real thing. Like there are like Black individuals as well that are racist. Not everyone, but everyone is capable of being racist, no matter like
I feel like it's prejudice in that case, but that might just be because we have different definitions of racism. Because I feel like
that's true.
I tend to think racism is more. Did we talk? Didn't we have an episode on this?
We talked about racism. We were trying to figure out like the definitions, and we were trying to figure out like so yeah, continue. Like yeah,
So, like, what did we end up saying was racism?
I mean, I don't think we came to like a solid definition because there's
Okay.
so many like
Right.
factors that go into racism, and there's different types of racism. Like I think what we were mainly talking about earlier was anti-black racism, and
Mhm.
that was like our main focus. But
Right.
I think the racism that we're seeing now is like
Yeah.
it's other types of racism.
Yeah.
And I think that just like kind of goes to show that like it's not something that like only a certain group of individuals should be trying to like work on within
Right.
themselves. It should be everyone. And like we're all involved in it somehow. Like I think sometimes I mean I in when I was younger, I've definitely been racist to like other people of color just because of like how what people have told me and how people like acted around me. So I thought it was right. And growing up, you realize like, wow, that no, that's not right. That's not how it
Mhm.
should be. And I don't think people talk about that. And I think they should because like even if you are a person of color, like there you might have some bias within you as well. Just like I've seen black individuals be racist towards other like Asians.
Okay.
Like they'll make racist comments without actually like realizing what they're saying.
Mhm.
Like it's not something that one group should be
Right.
like held responsible, held accountable for. It should be everyone,
Yeah.
including myself. Like I'm totally taking responsibility for that, and it's been something I've been working on too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just yeah, kind of going back to like comparing each
Mhm.
other's like violence and experiences with racism is just so
Everyone's story
it's
matters.
it does, and yeah, we need to be raising more voices and making sure that there's more exposure to the things that
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
going wrong.
Sorry, I'm scrolling back down to our notes because I was looking through the racism notes. Give me a hot second.
Yeah. Um, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think it's just like we're influenced by like the types of like news and like the
Oh, yeah.
types of like articles that we're seeing, so we only get like I think this is like another case where like we're only getting like one side of the story.
Right.
And so like people just don't understand that there are other things that go down that we aren't necessarily seeing and you wouldn't really understand unless you're the person experiencing it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Do
Sorry.
you
Go
think,
ahead.
because you said earlier that like Asian Americans, or at least in your family or culture, tend to like not brush off things of racist content, but like um not focus on it too much. And I was curious, obviously you can't speak for the entire like
Yeah.
Asian population, but like maybe even just you as an individual, like why you think that might be.
Honestly, I have no idea. Like,
Okay.
I mean, I just like I've observed it happen a lot, but I don't have an explanation for it. I just know that like in general, like I think I think it's just because like I have like parents who are immigrants, right? So like the fact that they like were able to come to like the U.S. and get a job and be able to work, like then them coming from like a developing country and like places where that like they didn't have as many opportunities. This was like coming to the US was like huge thing for them. So like to complain about like some of the like racism and stuff that they experienced, I think that to them it just like was minuscule in comparison to like where they came from. So
Mm, got
like they're just like grateful that they like are able
okay.
to start their own lives here. So they were I think quicker to brush off like the racist comments and maybe the violence. And I mean, like I've like talked to like my parents about it, and sometimes like I'll ask them like their opinions on racism, and they tend to be a little more conservative about it. I think just because they're immigrants and because like they've seen like the other side of it,
Right.
and so like they're like, oh yeah, well racism happens all the time. Like it's you're always gonna like find like racist people. Like there's nothing you can do about it. I'm like, hmm. I understand where they're coming from, but like like I also understand where they're coming, like I understand like how we think about it because we're brought up in the US and like
Mhm.
we we see there's a problem with it, but we've also like not been exposed to like other countries and we haven't
Right.
had that experience. So like I know where they're coming from, so like it makes sense why they would think that and why they wouldn't really stand up for themselves because like they didn't start out here. They started out somewhere else. Whereas like you can't say the same thing for like Black individuals because they were here and they
Right.
like have every right to be here, and people are still racist toward them. So
Mhm.
like I think it's just like completely different narratives here going. But yeah, I don't know. I can't speak for every Asian
Right.
individual
Yeah.
because like yeah, not everyone has immigrant parents either, and some of them are still passive, and some of them are more vocal. Like there's definitely a lot of vocal Asians who are definitely speaking out and should be speaking out. Like
Right.
need to have more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah. I went to a cool Asian women in leadership conference the other week.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it like touched on like how like Asian women have to like fight for the same opportunities
Mhm.
that like others have. Like it's really hard to, you know, like they at least the women that were in the conference spoke on how like they want to be passive because they think that's like the way they should be, but they learn that they can't be passive and still like have a successful career or
Yeah,
business or which is kind of interesting. So
yeah, yeah. I'm not exactly sure why we all decided to be passive after that. I mean, maybe it was influenced by like our parents and like how
mm,
they moved from like a situation that wasn't working for them. But that's the only reason I can think of. But like maybe there's another reason that I just am not aware of. But
I
it's
mean,
yeah. Go ahead. Mhm.
oh, I was just gonna say um in like American culture, the only reason people are like really passive is stems from like I feel like religious perspectives. Like you're supposed to be like humble and kind and like selfless and all that. I don't know.
Mm.
But I don't know if there's any relation to Asian cultures, so
I just had like a bunch of thoughts, and I'm like, no, where to start? No, that's actually a good point though. Um, that's like I don't know if that is related to racism in particular, but I know like just in like small things, I can see how well actually it might be related. I was like thinking about it because like I know like within like different like religious communities or like spiritual communities, they're all about like love and light and spreading community and being accepting and supporting of everyone. So like sometimes people get the wrong idea and think that because like you call someone out or tell somebody that they're wrong and like you know um like just like reciprocate the type of like maybe hate that they were giving to other people to like show them that what you're doing is not right, that can be wrong, and like you shouldn't do that. And I think I don't know if that made any sense. I'm like getting
I
talking.
was not following, sorry.
I know I was talking. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Um, Let me figure out how to word this. Hold on.
Okay.
It's okay. Let me give you like a different like analogy or like an
Okay.
example, so like I can like
Yeah.
connect it to what I'm doing. My mind is like not working. Sorry. Okay. So like let's talk about boundaries. This we know
Yeah.
about. All right. So say like someone is like you're rooming with like a person in an apartment, like you have a roommate or something like that,
Mhm.
right? And you guys like agreed on from the beginning that someone's gonna do the dishes and someone's gonna like make the food, and then you're gonna like alternate.
Yes.
So say one of the roommates like stops doing the dishes, and then you tell them like, can you please do the dishes? And they're like, okay, I'll do it. And then they never do it. And then you're always like, do the dishes. Why aren't you doing the dishes? And like sometimes like there's uh people who kind of like don't set that boundary. So like if the person that's not doing the dishes is not doing the dishes, the person who wants the other person to do the dishes is like afraid of confronting the person that's doing the
Yes.
dishes. So they don't say anything. So they just kind of like keep going with it, and just like because they're afraid of hurting the other person's feelings, because they think it'd be like wrong to like state their like establish your boundaries. So like
Yes.
that example, I think kind of like if you broaden that out a little bit to like a religious perspective, um you could say that this person doesn't want to establish their boundaries and tell the other person that, hey, what you're doing is wrong. So they're always just they continue to be like love and light, like we'll be accepting, like I'll just go along with it. Is this making sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so
Yeah,
they just
like, you just forgive someone over and over and over again, even though
right, you keep pushing it under the rug and you don't like actually call them out. And I think the people, the religious people, or the people who are like scared of saying something, don't want to hurt the other person's feelings and don't want to create like a problem, so they don't say anything. And so I think that kind of applies to the racism thing, because they're like, if I talk about my problems, then I'm just going to create a problem and I'm going to be like the drama queen sort of thing.
right, right. They talked about that in the Hate You Give, the book, The Hate You Give, in the movie.
Yeah.
Like the main character, Star, she like at her school because she went to like an all white school basically, besides like one or two other black individuals, and like she wanted to call people out on so much stuff, but like if she called people out, she would be seen as like the angry black woman,
Right.
or if she like said any like um slang words,
Hmm.
he'll like um marginalize her. So she had to like remove part of her personality kind of and be like just a smart, kind, perfect person, you know? So
Hmm.
I don't know if that was related, but it just seemed related to me. So
No, 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 I could see how that's related. Yeah, it's just like they don't want to say anything because they don't want to, make it a problem, and like
yeah,
they want to be viewed in like a negative light because
right.
people are judgmental and don't understand. But yeah, I know that totally makes sense for sure, for sure.
And that also segues into a interesting question that I had. Um, and we'll broaden it after I ask it.
Okay.
But have you ever been deemed as being like a fake Indian?
No one's like explicitly said that to me, but like I could feel it. I could feel it. Cause like I definitely view myself as like more American than I like express any of like my like Indian culture, because like I was born in the U.S. and obviously like I'm going to be like participating in a lot more like American culture, but this varies from like every like individual, because there
Right.
are kids who are born in the U.S. but their families are um, very traditional, so they like practice a lot of the culture and traditions and like celebrations, which I do, but I also like never really took seriously. Like I never picked up on like the language that my parents speak. I do like I understand like 70% of the language, but I haven't spoken it to them or to anyone in like so long, so it's all I've kind of forgotten it like over time. um and I don't keep in touch with like my family members in like India that often, so like I've lost like a lot of like just like understanding of like the culture, just because I've just been surrounded by um people who don't really, yeah, who aren't Indian and who practice the culture. Although we do have like Indian friends, I like never really associated with that because I never saw myself, I didn't really fit in. And so I know that like when I would go to like in like Indian celebrations, like maybe like Holi or Diwali, sometimes like I just wouldn't know what to do, or like during like pujas, which is basically like a ritual for like in the temple. I wouldn't know what to do. And so like I could feel like the judgment of like, like you should know what to do. Like you should know how to like celebrate and know like what these things mean. And I didn't know because I was just like, I didn't practice the culture all that often. So I felt like the fake Indian.
Okay.
Um, yeah, because like, yeah, I know we have like friends who have had comments. I think you mentioned like one of our friends, um, I think one of our friends was labeled as like a fake Indian because she didn't really know like about like Indian culture, even though she was Indian. And yeah, it's just kind of sad. It's just like,
Mhm.
yeah,
It's interesting because like I feel like it's kind of similar to the LinkedIn story I shared. Like it's instead of like building each other and like getting to a state of like we're all fighting the powers that be, you know? Um it's like tearing each other down. I don't know.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. Yeah, for sure.
Like
Um, yeah.
like, sorry, if you were gonna say something, you can go ahead.
Mm-mm, go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say, like, a lot of it's like marginalized group versus marginalized group, or like in like a workspace, like they want like 5% African Americans or like 5% people of color. So like the Asian woman has to fight against the black man instead of like trying to have both of you and trying to fight against the, well, I mean, not fight the white people, but like, you know, expand the equality. Or like women, like to break the glass ceiling, like women are taught to compare themselves to women, to fight women, and to like stake their claim on their men, and like all of that stuff, instead of like women supporting women, Asians supporting Asians, Latinos are supporting the Latinos. Like,
Yeah.
sorry, I digress.
No, I think that's a totally valid point. Like it's just like the system kind of forces us to
Yeah.
compete against each other. I think we talked about this in like one of our like women's one of our episodes about like women in the workplace or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally think that's valid. It's like it's working against how we want to come together because we have to compete to make a decent living, and it's just it doesn't work out for anyone. It's just so sad, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really unfortunate.
it is for sure. It's like so weird because like the whole like comparison thing kind of like you can see like different patterns and like different like in different like topics because I know we talk about like mental health a lot and like
Mhm.
people tend to compare mental illnesses too
Yeah.
even though all mental illnesses are like valid and
Yes.
you need treatment and they should be treated
Mhm.
like a serious thing. And I feel like some people are like competing over like which types of mental illnesses are worse, like
Right.
depression versus like anxiety, or like, I had PTSD, anxiety, and this and that. And like, oh, you only have this, like, well, you don't have this. So like
Or like
you're
you're not that depressed. You don't need help. Some people are
exactly.
getting worse.
It makes me so mad. I'm like, you shouldn't need to compare like your experience with someone else. If anything, that's just hurting you.
Yeah.
Like it's just like it almost sounds like you want to continue to be like in pain. I'm
Mhm.
like, aren't you supposed to be like, are we supposed to be like supporting each other and helping each other heal? But it's almost like, I don't know, maybe it's just me observing things, but it's almost like a trend to have mental illness. Like if you have a mental illness, you're so much cooler now. Like, oh my gosh, she's so relatable. We have like the same mental illness.
Yeah.
Like,
That was,
oh, that's so, it's
yeah.
so twisted and like so weird. Like, being healthy isn't cool anymore. You have to be unhealthy to be
Well, like,
relatable.
I also feel like, and I'm not in these people's bodies, so maybe this is like a dick move for me to say, but like, I feel like some people are exaggerating, maybe, or like lying about mental illness in order to get clout.
I mean, I definitely think that's a real thing, and I think people
Okay.
have done that. And I think
Okay.
it's just like it's definitely invalidating the people who actually have problems
Mhm.
because they're trying to, gain attention from having these issues and get people to like
Yeah.
sympathize and like. There are people who are super manipulative about that. Like they'll maybe like make their issues a little more exaggerated than maybe it is to like gain more support and
Right.
love, and because like people are more willing to like show love and stuff when you're vulnerable, and I think some people take advantage of that, and it's a problem because like you're not helping anyone and you're certainly not helping yourself. Like i i i I said I think, oh my gosh, I'm stuttering so much. I
Mhm.
think I sort of think that like the more you think about, like, this is sort of like sort of an esoteric concept, but I think the more you think about something, the more real it becomes for you. And so
Mhm.
like it kind of like ties into like the law of attraction and like your thoughts create your reality. And like if you keep focusing on like having a mental illness, that thing might actually happen, and you could like sort of self-sabotage yourself into developing like a disorder that wasn't there to begin with.
We could argue
And
about this.
oh, okay, wait, like,
This
have your
is
thoughts changed? Like, do you want to discuss, because
this is
I'm
like the
totally
one
willing to have this
thing that like
conversation.
I feel like we argued in our group about. I mean, we've argued about a lot of things, but like the mental health thing that we argued with you about like the like you don't create your own mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there. I don't know. And like anxiety, I'm not trying to focus on my anxiety. It's just my heart is beating and my mind
Oh
is,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No,
So
I'm not saying everyone's mental illness is caused by like themselves. Like it's very real, and some people like can't control it, and it's caused by things that are out of their control. That's totally like you're like you dealing with anxiety like that might not be caused by like yourself. It could be other things that I can't explain that. I think what I was trying to say was that like there are cases where like some people do sometimes self sabotage themselves into like having things that they didn't need to do because maybe they wanted to fit a certain like societal construct or something like that. Like I definitely think that's real. I don't think that's the case for everyone, and it's definitely it definitely isn't, because I mean I've experienced that too. I mean I've experienced anxiety too without like wanting to, like without focusing on anxiety. Like I understand. I'm just like I was more trying to like say that that's a possibility, and it does happen. I think it's worth talking about because there might be a lot of people that we could help by talking about that because they do that.
interesting. Okay.
You look like you have you
I,
don't.
yeah, I feel like I need to think about it more. Because I feel like I'm probably just not understanding it completely. Because like a lot of the times when you explain something to me, I like and I argue it right away. It's usually just because I don't get the concept. And I not that I disagree with what you're saying, you know. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
thank you for like not like flaming me. Cuz like yeah, no, thank you for like discussing stuff like that with
yeah,
me, because yeah, people can be very judgmental. I'm like willing to like discuss it. Like I don't understand why people are so they're like so like they like shut people down without actually hearing their like perspective. And I think it's worth talking about like this sort of thing, because then you can like clear up any misunderstandings and like come to like a good conclusion, and like everyone knows what they're talking about and everything's clear. But it doesn't work like that all the time. So it's
yeah.
sad. But
Communication is important, but sometimes it's scary. Like some people don't want to like risk their ego or like risk, I don't know, people like being offended or stuff like that. So
mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um we're out of time. But this was a really interesting conversation, and I'd love to like maybe like do another episode about like the whole like differing opinions, because I think it's interesting. I think it's worth
mental
talking
health
about.
thing.
Yeah, and it like kind of
Yeah.
like connects
I
to
didn't
like a
really
lot of
honestly
things. But
believe that. I honestly did not realize you still believe that.
really,
Yeah, really. Because we haven't talked about that in a hot second.
surprise.
The last thing we talked about, I mean, we've talked about mental health a lot, but we talked about something like in your car. I don't remember.
Cool. We
Yeah.
can talk about it more.
It was about like me, like if it's good for me to like analyze all the shit that went down a few years ago, or if I should just
Um,
move past it. I think we talked about that recently, but yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've definitely learned. I'm definitely a different person compared to like a
Yes.
couple months ago, a couple years ago. So like I now know what I should say and what I shouldn't say, and what I can control and what I can't control. So I'm definitely more better about how I
Yeah.
approach these situations. So um, I'll leave it at that. And oh, this is so awkward. I'm sorry. Sorry for anyone who's listening, but we can definitely have a conversation about this later, because I think it'd be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, if you guys enjoyed this episode, you can leave us a like. If you're on YouTube, comment on what opinions you have. We'd love to hear it. And if you want to reach out to us, you can reach us at Far From Normal Podcast 2020 at gmail.com. We also have an Instagram at Far From Normal Podcast. Google Forms also in the Instagram, so you can leave any comments, suggestions, feedbacks, questions, anything in there. We're very active on Instagram, so definitely leave us a comment and say hi. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye all. Love you.
Bye.